Welcome back to Silent Stories Updates, where real-life tales of betrayal, justice, and redemption come alive. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay till the end of the story because today's story is unlike anything you've ever heard. It's a shocking story about how a homeowner returned home early from a business trip, only to find his own HOA President Karen living inside his mansion. What followed was a battle for justice, dignity, and truth. It all started on a warm Friday afternoon. The sky was golden, and the sound of engines humming at the airport felt like music to my ears. After almost a month abroad, I was finally homeward bound. The flight was early, and my plan was simple: to surprise my family. My wife thought I'd return 2 days later. I imagined walking through the front doors, my daughter running to me, the smell of fresh coffee in the air. But fate had a different surprise waiting. When I pulled into the driveway, something immediately felt wrong. My house stood as tall and beautiful as ever, but there were small details that made my stomach twist. The lawn, which was always slightly overgrown when I traveled, was perfectly trimmed. The hedges were shaped into neat squares. The mailbox gleamed like new, freshly painted, and there were the wicker chairs on the porch that I had never bought out at first. I thought my wife had maybe hired someone to do extra maintenance while I was gone. But when I noticed a pair of women's sandals placed neatly by the door sandals, I didn't recognize. My chest tightened. I called my wife, but her phone went straight to voicemail. She was visiting her mother in another city with her daughter, so the house should have been empty. Completely empty. I took a deep breath, slid the key into the lock, and opened the door. What I saw next made my blood run cold. A woman stood in the middle of my living room wearing my wife's silk robe. She was holding one of our wine glasses, sipping casually like she owned the place. When she saw me, she froze. Her eyes widened, her jaw dropped, and for a few seconds, neither of us spoke. "Who are you?" I finally demanded. She straightened, trying to mask her shock with arrogance. "Who are you?" she shot back. "You can't just walk in here." I blinked, completely stunned. "This is my house," I said slowly. Her expression hardened. "No, it's not. I'm calling the police." At first, I thought she was joking, but when she pulled out her phone and started dialing, I realized she wasn't bluffing. She really was calling the cops on me inside my own home. Within minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled up to the curb. I explained everything: the address, my ID, even the deed. But she jumped in, waving her hands and spinning a wild story. "This man broke into my home," she said, her voice trembling with false fear. "I'm the HOA President. The original owners abandoned the property weeks ago, and I've been maintaining it." The officers exchanged confused glances. I was furious but tried to stay calm. I showed them proof of ownership, but she kept shouting over me, trying to make me look unstable. Eventually, one officer stepped aside and radioed in the property records. After a few tense minutes, the results came back. It was indeed my house. The look on her face shifted from panic to pure fury. "Sir," one officer said, "we're going to have to ask her to leave the property." Karen, the woman, the so-called HOA President, exploded. She started screaming about community property management and squatters' rights, shouting that she had every legal right to stay because she was protecting the home. As the officers escorted her out, she yelled over her shoulder, "You'll regret this. I'll sue you. You'll lose everything." Neighbors began to gather outside, whispering, recording with their phones. I stood in the doorway of my own home, watching her drive off with her trunk full of my possessions. The next morning, I began assessing the damage. My bedroom closet was half empty. My wife's jewelry, some of her clothes, and even her perfumes were missing. The guest suite had been rearranged, and I found evidence that someone had been living there. There were open bottles of wine, half-eaten food in the kitchen, and even a set of new house keys labeled Karen's. She had moved in completely. Later that day, I checked the security footage. To my horror, the cameras had been disabled. The alarm system was disarmed using the master code. Somehow, she had gotten access. That's when it hit me. Karen had been at my house weeks before, conducting a so-called property inspection for the HOA. She must have copied the access code during one of those visits. I contacted my lawyer immediately. Together, we pressed charges for trespassing, theft, and property damage. But when the HOA board heard about it, they didn't rally behind me. They sided with her. They said it was all a misunderstanding. That Karen was just helping and that maybe my home looked vacant. I couldn't believe it. Instead of condemning her actions, they tried to fine me for disturbing the neighborhood peace when the police showed up. That's when I realized this wasn't just a case of one corrupt woman. It was an entire system built to protect her. I decided to fight back, no matter how long it took. With my lawyer's help, I demanded full access to HOA financial records, maintenance invoices, and communications. It took weeks of legal pressure, but what we found made my jaw drop. Karen had been stealing from the HOA for years. Small amounts at first, maintenance fees, landscaping reimbursements, community event funds, all funneled quietly into her personal account. She had been living off HOA money while pretending to protect the neighborhood. The board was stunned. Once the documents became public, they couldn't defend her anymore. They voted to remove her immediately, and within days, the police reopened the investigation. Karen was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, theft, and trespassing. When I saw her in court months later, she looked smaller, like all that arrogance had been drained out of her. She avoided my eyes the entire time. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison, along with restitution payments for what she had stolen. But even after she was gone, the damage lingered. My family didn't feel safe in our own home. My wife couldn't sleep for weeks. Every sound made her flinch. My daughter kept asking why someone would want to live in our house when we weren't there. I didn't have an answer. The house felt tainted, like her presence still hung in the air. I started coming home late, sitting in the driveway before walking in. I just didn't feel peace inside anymore, until one evening. My daughter said something that changed everything. She sat beside me on the couch and said softly, "Dad, it's just a house. We're the home." Those words hit deep. That night, I decided we wouldn't let her win. We'd reclaim our peace. We repainted every wall, changed every lock, replaced every piece of furniture she had touched. We filled the place with new memories, movie nights, laughter, the smell of my wife's favorite candles. Slowly, the mansion stopped feeling like a crime scene and started feeling like our home again. Months later, one of the former HOA members sent me a letter. He apologized for not believing me sooner. He admitted that Karen had manipulated everyone with her charm and authority. She convinced the entire board that she was acting for the good of the neighborhood. But it was all a lie. He ended the letter with one line that stayed with me. "Evil doesn't always come with a mask, it sometimes wears a name tag." He was right. Karen had fooled everyone. She used her title as HOA President to control, to threaten, and to invade. But in the end, truth caught up with her. The experience taught me something I'll never forget. Protecting your home isn't just about locks and alarm systems. It's about boundaries, knowing when to stand up, when to fight back, and when to say, enough. Sometimes, people think power gives them the right to cross lines, to take what isn't theirs, to intimidate others into silence. But it doesn't. My home isn't just a building of stone and glass, it's a reflection of every sacrifice I made to build a life for my family. And no one, not even an HOA president with fake authority, can take that from me. In the end, Karen lost everything: her position, her reputation, her freedom. And while part of me wanted revenge, what I truly felt was relief. Justice had been served. Today, when I pull into my driveway, I see more than a mansion. I see a symbol of survival, of strength, of reclaiming what's rightfully yours. And every time I look at the porch where she once sat, pretending to own my life, I remind myself evil can invade your space, but only you can decide if it stays there. So, to anyone watching this who's ever been wronged, manipulated, or taken advantage of, remember this: truth doesn't hide forever. Lies fall apart, and when they do, all that's left standing is the one who never gave up. Because real strength isn't in what we own, it's in what we overcome. Thank you for watching this story on Silent Stories Updates. If you found this story powerful or inspiring, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, and never stop standing up for what's right.